You face the mirror, place your palms and forehead against its cool surface, and solemnly repeat the summoning words 3 times. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody... No, I'm not tempting fate here. Too superstitious. But why is this a thing? Who is this mysterious ghostly lady, and what does she want? To grant you a wish? Scratch your face off, show you your future, show you your death, reach through and grab your neck, pull you into the mirror with her? Well, as you can see, there are actually a few different stories behind the summoning spell. And depending on where and when you're from, you may have heard a different version of the ritual, from Bloody Mary being a witch who was wrongly killed, or a local teenager who died in a brutal car accident, destroying her face. She could also have a different name, like Bloody Bones, Hell Mary, Mary Worth, Mary Lou, Sally, Kathy, Agnes, etc. But some things always seem to remain the same. This ritual happens most often in a bathroom mirror. Why? Well, in most homes, this room usually has a large mirror and is usually the easiest room to darken, as there are likely no windows in there, and this spell requires darkness. Maybe a candle or two, depending on who you ask. But what usually happens is that someone from the sleepover is selected, or volunteers, brave soul, to summon Mary. The room is darkened and they face the mirror, either alone or surrounded by friends, chanting louder and louder and louder, 3, 7, or 13 times depending, until they are shouting for her. Then she appears, covered in blood. And before I dive into the who of Bloody Mary and other mirror ghosts, I need to tell you the basics of katroptomancy, or divination with the use of a mirror or reflective surface, because that's kind of core here. In its early days, like ancient Greek era stuff, if you were sick and gazed into a reflective surface, you could see your prognosis. If you saw a healthy face staring back at you, you would likely recover. But if you saw a sickly visage in the reflection, well, your days were numbered and death was on its way. So using mirrors and reflections to tell the future has been around for ages. You can use a darkened mirror for scrying or seeing things at a distance, or crystal balls, or a dimly lit mirror for other rituals. Really depends on what you're looking for. Mirrors do seem to hold a special power. In the Victorian era, all the mirrors in a home would be covered once someone died. The thought being that if the spirit of the dead person saw their reflection in a mirror, they would be trapped in the house instead of moving on. It was common then to mourn the departed loved one for a few weeks in the house, during which time the body would be kept in the home. So when you see shrouds over mirrors from then, that's likely why, to prevent future house hauntings and trapped souls. So mirror rituals are certainly not a new thing at sleepovers. There's an official Bloody Mary research effort from the 1970s, meaning that this was already an established thing before then. But even in the early 1900s, mirror rituals were used a lot around Halloween, when the veil between the worlds is believed to be thinner, to see one's future partner's face appear in it. How exciting! If the gazer instead saw a skull or grim reaper, they would die before marrying. Look, a lot of Halloween rituals were focused on finding a mate, especially in rural places. Some of the more interesting ones have you playing with fire though, which is way more entertaining, just saying. Now there are a few theories about who is the Mary that gets summoned. Some people think that it's the English queen nicknamed Bloody Mary because of how many Protestants she had killed during her reign. But honestly, it appears like they only share a name and a lot of, well, blood. I certainly wasn't thinking of historical queens at sleepovers. People like witches done wrong or vengeful spirits just made more sense. But there are some historical figures that do seem to fit. And in some variations of the ritual, her name is chanted, Mary Worth, who by all accounts was an awful human. She would trap those fleeing on the Underground Railroad and hurt and kill them. And there is another Mary Worth who seems to have been accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake in the European witch trials centuries before the other Mary Worth. There's also a Hungarian countess who apparently tortured and killed around 650 women and girls to bathe in their blood to stay youthful, and was accused of vampirism, although her name was Elizabeth Balthroy and not Mary, so while it explains the blood in young girls, it does not explain the summoning name. Although, again, depending on where and when you're from, there are other names for this mirror lady. And, of course, I can't talk about ghosts in bathrooms without mentioning Hanako-san, who has been around longer than Bloody Mary, by some accounts dating back to the 1470s. Modern Japanese folklore and urban legends say that Hanako-san was killed while playing hide-and-seek during a World War II air raid, or that she was murdered, or that she took her own life in a school bathroom. She haunts the school bathrooms to this day and can be summoned by knocking 3 times on the 3rd stall and asking if Hanako-san is present. If she is, she will answer. So there are a lot of Bloody Marys, but why do we summon them? Well, remember that study that I told you about earlier? Folklore scholars and psychologists believe that these types of mirror and bathroom rituals are a rite of passage for adolescents in the Robinson age, ages 9 through 12, an age in a person's life where they court danger and their personal limits and tolerances and play in the dark. It's also the age where a lot of girls, well, come of age. Also, what you see in the mirror is basically a reflection of how you see the world, and that can change as we age. Of course, there are mundane reasons why we see Bloody Mary. The Troxler effect is one of them. This is an optical illusion where, if you stare at a particular point even for a short time, unchanging things around that point will appear to fade away, like the dots here if you stare at the center cross. And apparently, when in a dark room, our brains start to make connections between unrelated things, which is called apophenia. So if you're staring at a fixed point, say your eyes reflected in a dimly lit mirror in a bathroom, and things disappear around them, but then your brain is filling in those perceived gaps with different information, you might get a different face. On top of that, some say that when our brain gets bored, it fills in the spaces with scary things. So in theory, your own face could become the face of your worst nightmares, hence Bloody Mary. Regardless of how it can be rationalized away, I will always to this day close my eyes tight when passing by a mirror at night. Old habits die hard, but hey, it seems to have worked this far. But what are some of the mirror rituals you've heard of? Let me know in the comments below, and do subscribe so you won't miss the next spooky cool video. Goodbye!